Makhura is coming through to come and speak to the media. He is joined by Nana Khadebe, who speaks on behalf of Johannesburg EMS. Thank you so much, Premier, for talking to us. What a mess, Premier.
Well, I think this is a real disaster, and it requires a comprehensive response by all spheres of government, and that's what's happening right now. Our primary, the mayor and I have just come from meeting with the families, but the first and most important preoccupation for us is to put out this fire, and we're getting. This morning I spoke to all the mayors of the metros. They have brought their reinforcement teams here. The city of Tshwane and the city of Ekurhuleni are working with Johannesburg. And I also spoke later when they gave me a briefing that the fire is still persisting. Spoke to the Minister of Defense, and the Defense Force is also going to reinforce. You can see that this fire is really persisting. They will do their part. I have requested that for the reasons that some of that fire then may require the helicopters they often use to put out the fires in the mountains. We have seen them do that in the Western Cape, in those failed fires, that the Defence Force may assist. So the Minister has responded positively. They are on their way. So that's the primary consideration now, to make sure that this fire is put out, but also to evacuate the neighboring buildings here. That's our preoccupation now.
So you are also trying to ensure that the neighboring buildings are evacuated. In fact, one building directly across houses students, and in terms of the way the wind has been blowing, much of the smoke tends to go in that direction. So that's something else that now becomes a priority for you.
It is a priority for me. I'm going to there is a room, an emergency operations room, where the team that operates from this vehicle, the bigger team is in there that's monitoring. I'm going to go in there. They are going to give me a briefing. But the experts here say to me, whereas this fire may look contained now, they want to make sure that unlike what happened last night, the fire looked contained, and in no time another part of the building was back raging there. So they're saying to me, they don't want to be lulled by the sense that this is under control. So all the reinforcements required, they need them to be on site. So I'm going to go into the building where the student accommodation is. Right. They told me that some of the students have been allowed back in, and I'm saying to them it is a great risk. We should ensure that there's no building next to this where there are people there.
Premier, I do want to release you. You are central to the response of the government. Let me ask you about the families. You've gone to meet with the families. It's a task that you, as an official in government, I imagine have had to carry out quite a number of times. These are the families of the 3 firefighters who have now died. How are they holding up? It's never easy, is it?
It is never easy. The mayor and I have now released the names of the deceased firefighters earlier on. That's firefighter Muropani, firefighter Ndlovu, and firefighter Mwedi. We have released those names with the permission of the families. We have met with the families, firstly to communicate our condolences, but also to say to the families they have contributed to the nation, to one of the most difficult tasks. That's firefighting, like being in the army, like being in the police. It's a very risky job, but these 3 firefighters carried out this job with a great deal of dedication. They are family men who left their homes hoping to come back. They were breadwinners in these families. The families are heartbroken, and we had a communication with them. We are helping them now to go through. When we left, they were being taken by the chaplains of the EMS to the mortuary. It is a very difficult time for the families. It's very, very difficult times.
Let me end by suggesting to you, Premier, and I imagine you've been answering these questions since this incident started developing, that you should be utterly ashamed that your employees, the people who are essentially government's hands, with which government touches the lives of citizens were working in the kind of conditions that people were working in. This was not unforeseen, Premier. This was a disaster waiting to happen. You were bogged down in your bureaucracy of reports, of feasibility studies, of let's see what else we can do. But in the end, nothing moved, and people found themselves trapped in buildings like these, having to be evacuated. What do you say to that?
I would like to say, firstly, that I took a decision last year that instead of us dealing with building by building, there's always a problem with one building. I said to the Department of Infrastructure Development, let's commission a comprehensive conditional assessment of all the buildings and facilities of the Gauteng government. And that conditional assessment was carried out. All the buildings, any building, any facility that falls under us was assessed. And as you would know, we have also simultaneously been decommissioning some of the buildings. So when a report comes and say this building is in a terrible state, it can be rehabilitated, it can be made, there's no need for refurbishing. It is no longer structurally sound. We have decommissioned several buildings. One of them stands right in front of my office, which was the Department of Community Safety. We said, when the report comes, we say, we need to leave this building. It needs to be demolished, and the demolition of that comes with the next phase of rebuilding the government seat of the Gauteng government in here. So we have decommissioned several buildings that were clearly structurally unsound. But the reports, where the report says this building needs to be improved in the following areas, we would undertake to do that. With regard to this one, we have, last night when I did a media briefing here, I said that there are 3 departments that occupy this building: the Department of COGTA, that's Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Human Settlements and Health. We had started a process, and this is done by the custodian department, Infrastructure Development, of moving the Department of Cooperative Governance. And as you say, we do that when we get a report last week. The process of moving these departments to get to the new accommodation, to accommodate them, had started. And as I say to you, when a report comes and say a building is structurally unsound, we decommission. Right. So we have got seven other buildings, and last night I ordered that the MEC of Infrastructure Development, that in those 7 buildings where the report says they are not complying, we need to immediately make sure that we get alternative accommodation for the employees. So and the accident happened in the course of a process where we were actually moving.
I appreciate your explanation.
Yes.
Let's talk to the sentiment of it. I said to you, you should be utterly ashamed that your workers were working under these conditions, not only in this building, but in 7 other buildings, possibly more.
Yes, I have said to you, I think firstly, let me say, I am more than ashamed when there's loss of life. And in this case, we have 3 firefighters who lost their lives. I'm more than ashamed. With regard to the conditions under which workers work, it is always, I come from a trade union background. I represented workers workers demanding that they work under safe conditions. There can be no justification about that. And even in the office of the Premier, that building itself is currently undergoing some upgrading. When there are problems in the building, I say I'm also part of those who are affected. Let's make sure that all government buildings are sound, are structurally sound, they are safe for all the workers to work in there. And one of the important things that we have been undertaking, unfortunately government processes take long, they take their own time, is the remaking of all the government buildings here. They take time, but they also take money. So that's why we've been doing it one by one. Unfortunately, doing it one by one can come at a cost, as we have seen here. Right. And I would like to make sure that there's no There are no workers sitting in any of the buildings identified by the conditional assessment report that they are structurally unsound.
Service delivery will definitely affect.
I must follow government processes. I don't want any reason that our officials have deviated and in the process things go wrong because of corruption. So it's an emergency. At least for now, with the 7 buildings, we're going to ask our provincial treasury department to allow us to get the Department of Infrastructure to procure working spaces. You should know that these buildings are our buildings, so we were not paying for them. But if we've got to go to the next building, we're going to have to ensure that every department pays for accommodation. Yes. But this should not disrupt service delivery. Unfortunately, for the next few days it will, but we want to recover as soon as possible.
Right.